Alrighty. Okay, awesome. Hello, everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome. My name is Buki, and I'm a senior career coach at the Center for Career Development and Academic Exploration. In my role, I help students to think about jobs, internships, interviews, and all of those things. And I host events like this after, once I identify that a lot of students are interested in this. And we know that a lot of our students are interested in gaming. So finally, we're doing this. But you're not here to listen to me because I don't have any information about gaming to provide, but I brought the experts. So I brought people to talk about that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read their bio. I'm going to bring them on the stage, and I'm going to welcome Jason as well, because Jason would be our moderator for this conversation. So in no particular order, I'm going to start with Stefan, and I will read his bio just so you know who is in front of you, and we'll get this started. Awesome. So I have your bio with me, Stefan, and I'm going to go ahead and read that.
All right.
All right. So Stefan has been working as a software development engineer in games and related fields for the past 25 years. After a few years of working as a mechanical engineer in the cellular phone industry, during which time he was developing and distributing video games he created as a hobby. He switched to software development at a Chicago-based game studio named Bungie. After Bungie announced their new game Halo, the studio was acquired by Microsoft, and Stefan spent the next several years working on Halo. Halo CE, Halo 2, and Halo 3. After joining some fellow Bungie alumni at a new game studio in Austin, Texas, he has continued to work on a variety of games in the PC, mobile, console, and VR spaces. Most recently, Halo Infinite and Hogwarts Legacy. Oh, y'all can tell I'm not really big on games as I'm butchering all these names, but thanks for being patient with me.
You did great.
All right, thank you. So when not developing games, Stefan enjoys spending time with his wife and son, cycling, exploring the world, and volunteering with big brothers and big sisters of Central Texas. Hi, Stefan. Welcome. All right.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right. Okay. Then I'm going to invite Kernan next. All right. So Kernan is a video game producer currently working at Sony's Santa Monica studio. Kernan graduated from UTK in 2017 with a BFA in graphic design. After college, Kernan started his own indie studio, Obnoxious Laughter, which released 2 mobile games so unsuccessful that Kernan has since removed them from the App Store to save money. I'm dying to hear about that. Kernan then got a job at Epic Games as a production assistant, focusing on improving Fortnite performance across all platforms. Now, Kernan is currently working as a technical producer at Santa Monica Studios, having most recently worked on Companion AI, Combat Banter, Vehicle Tech, and Jala, the magical yak for God of War Ragnarok. Welcome, Kernan. Awesome.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yes, all right. And then the next person is Michael. All right. And Michael, I'm glad I don't have to pronounce your last name because
Slansky.
Okay, Slansky, awesome. So Michael is a 2019 graduate of the University of Tennessee with a BSBA in marketing. So something a little different. A passionate esports advocate, he co-founded the UTK Esports Club in 2015 and served as the president from 2017 to 2019. Currently, Michael works at Boom TV AVGL, where he leads scholastic esports initiatives and manages major esports events as an event project manager. Welcome, Michael.
Awesome. Glad to be here.
All right. Let me make sure I pin Michael. Okay. And then our next person, and that is going to be our moderator for this session, I'm inviting Jason. Jason has been a very, very wonderful partner to get this event together. So thank you, Jason. Jason is a data analyst in the College of Arts and Sciences, and he's the advisor for the esports and video game club on campus. He also teaches classes on the games industry and streaming video games. So because I could not say a lot about games, I brought Jason. That would help us get this conversation going. So I'm going to invite Jason and then we will move along. Thanks, Jason. All right.
Thank you, Buki. Do you want me to just go from here?
Yes, go from here. Enjoy, and we'll be
Okay.
monitoring the chat.
All right. I have to admit I've been super excited about this for many, many, many days when Buki first told me about it. And so thank you to you three for coming out to this. I I'm gonna fanboy for just about 10 seconds and say Halo, I've been a Halo fan forever. And so I'm sure everyone can attest to this that I don't know if I feel worthy enough to lead this conversation. But very excited. And then I've known Michael a long time as well through UT. And I'm sad that I never met Kieran while he was a student. And so I'm happy to have him back and excited to hear your journey. And that's where I want to kick off this conversation is hearing your all's journeys and how you got into sort of where you are today and sort of where it all began. Let's start with sort of I'll go youngest and then work our way up maybe. So let's start with Michael. We'll go Kieran and then Stefan from there.
Alrighty, well, sounds good. As Jason said, I've known Jason since 2015, since we kind of started the club together at the University of Tennessee. And so Jason, I brought him on as the advisor when he was my FYS 101 instructor. And so throughout my years in college, kind of built up what is now, I guess, have you changed the name, Jason? The UTK video game and esports club.
No, it's
But
just still UTK Esports,
okay,
good old
perfect.
fashioned.
Perfect. So yeah, kind of built up what that is now today, and then served as president t through 2017 through 2019, and just kind of got my hands on while I was at school there, doing productions, running, student run broadcasts, running events, um, and just kind of getting my hands dirty with scholastic and collegiate esports. And while I was also a student there, I co-founded Collegiate PUBG, which is kind of a organization that was centered around PlayerUnknown's Battleground, kind of a battle royale game that is still out there today, and brought together like 100 different colleges to compete in this game. And that really is kind of what kind of leapfrogged my career to where it is today. So I graduated in 2019 with a BSBA in marketing, and at the time I didn't, land a job straight out of college. I was working part-time doing maintenance, and then also another part-time at like a local video game store until I was finally fortunate enough to land the position I'm at today, uh, which is at Boom TV in AVGL. And I was originally brought on as a Scholastic esports team lead, and I led our initiatives for Scholastic programming through a program called Intel Inspires, which focused on giving high school students opportunities into college and offering them scholarships to compete in video game tournaments. And throughout my journey with Boom TV and AVGL, I've kind of migrated over to more influencer related events and marketing. So doing a lot of the third party events that Epic Games and Fortnite puts on, Activision, um, and those titles and the big AAA games. So that's kind of where I'm at today and kind of how I've ended up there.
Thank you, Michael. Let's go, Kieran. Can you give us sort of your journey and sort of where you're at today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually from Knoxville, Tennessee, born and raised. Lived in East Knoxville, went to Carter High School and a bunch of other places too. I was kind of into everything. Did lots of like music and art stuff. But I always knew I wanted to go into games. So, but I didn't do my majors correctly when I was in school. So I got into graphic design just so that I could get a degree. And I actually really liked graphic design, and it gave me an opportunity to learn a little bit of code. The program was really flexible, and they gave me a lot of like really great tips on like, hey, just go to conferences and talk to people. So it was actually the year that I graduated that I first heard what a video game producer was. And I was like, oh, cool, but that's not really for me. I want to be a video game designer. So I designed my own video game. I made a little tiny indie game where you swipe left to fire your employees. You're basically like the boss, and it's Tinder. Yeah. And I spent like 8 months just like locked in my bedroom making this game, working part-time gigs. And then, like was working on the next project. The game was on the App Store. It was making some money. And then I was like, all right, this next project is going to take me 2 years. I actually did something that I realize now was producering, where I realized my project was out of scope. My ideas were just going to be too great for me to do them on my own. So I gave in, and I didn't originally want to go to a AAA studio, but because at the time I'd heard lots of really big horror stories about the hours and what it was like, and it turned out to not be that bad. But yeah, so then I applied everywhere and got a really awesome opportunity at Epic Games. Basically, just trying to get every version of Fortnite tested just for frame rate and memory. Just test every single new feature going in, just partnering with all the QA and the engineers and people. And it was a really complicated job where I learned, oh, I have to talk to people. I can't actually build any piece of this. I have to find someone who can handle this problem or do something like that. And I realized that I was getting really sort of socially and organizationally challenged, and I just fell in love with video game production. And so for people who, like maybe everyone in here doesn't know what a producer is in video games, and I think the easiest form I've ever heard of is the producer's responsibility is to just make sure that shit gets done. They're not actually coding or doing any of the art. They're actually trying to do everything else so that the coders can code, the artists can art, the designers can design. And yeah, I feel like just kind of working with a community of people and collaborating, and that was my forte. And yeah, so that's why I'm now a producer, mostly working with technical groups on games like God of War Ragnarok.
That's awesome. I'm gonna get back into the what does a producer do here in a minute. So thank you for that insight too, because that's really exciting. Stefan.
Hey, yeah, so my journey into game development as a career was kind of a roundabout one. I studied mechanical engineering. Got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering in the mid 1990s. At that time, while I was going to school, like most people my age, I was into video games, and I was curious, what to learn about what goes into a video game. I wanted to try doing some programming on my own, develop some games. In the mechanical engineering department back then, students got one semester of Fortran programming, and that was it. For those of you who don't know, I think Fortran was made popular in the late 1950s by NASA. I think they used it to program the early Apollo missions, but it's not something that you use for video games. I had a friend who was in the computer science department, and I was asking him, what should I do if I want to learn about game development? He told me everything is done in C. If you want to develop video games, you need to learn C. So I spent a summer while I was also working and spent whatever free time I had teaching myself C, basically going through a college level course book front to back, doing all the exercises, and then started developing some 2D sprite games. Distributed some of them over shareware and just kind of kept at it as a hobby for a few years. After I graduated, I got a job in the cell phone industry. Way back when cell phones had little pull-up antennas or antennas that were actually screwed into the cell phones, and I was one of the people that was designing and helped manufacturing those. It's a good thing that I transitioned away from that because you'll probably notice that cell phones don't have those anymore. So my career just sort of disintegrated anyway. But I made the jump to game development back in the late 90s. I was a big fan of these new games that were put out by Bungie. They were called Myth: The Fallen Lords and then Myth 2. which was a sequel to that game. They were the first internet online multiplayer games that Bungie had done. And anyway, there was a big community of players around there, and actually the developers would get online and play as well. And it was actually through playing the game and hanging out with them that I learned of an opening that they had for a programming position. And a couple of my friends that I'd met online, they were encouraging me that, like, hey, Stefan, this is the kind of thing that'd be right up your alley. You should totally apply. And I figured, well, what have I got to lose? I'll put together a portfolio and a resume and send it off. I had some at that point my hobbyist career gotten to the point where I was actually burning CDs of my games and selling them out of my apartment. And so I had all these materials to try to, at least see if I could get a phone call back from Bungie. Because, coming from a mechanical engineering background, working in the cell phone industry, I figured, they're not going to want to talk to me, but they did. I got a call back. I got an interview, and ended up getting a job, and the rest was history. I haven't looked back. It's been a really rewarding but challenging career. Still to this day, learning new things. The technology is ever evolving. There's no shortage of interesting problems. So yeah, in that respect, it's been very rewarding, and I've been very fortunate to have worked on a lot of really cool games over those years. So yeah.
I love that story. The sort of happened in no one's gonna look at me. When I talk with students in some of my classes, we talk about connecting your degrees to your careers, and it's interesting to me that none of you have necessarily done that along the way, but you have a little bit and tied them in together. So I enjoy that storyline. Stefan, chat with us about what you do now, though, because you are much more senior than sort of the rest of us. And so what is it you do today, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so right now I'm director of engineering at Certain Affinity. We have two studios. Our original location here in Austin, Texas, where I am, we've got about 120, 130 employees, and then we have another smaller studio in Toronto, Ontario. What I do is I would say probably 50% people in project management, and maybe 50% individual contributor work still. So yeah, as far as my day to day, like I very much make a point to make sure that I still have some time to keep my eyes on code and actually doing some development work myself. I very much enjoy that. I find I get a little cranky if I don't have that opportunity, because I really do enjoy the problem solving aspect of it. But I found that I also really enjoy you know, being a people manager, helping other people be successful and helping them to grow and develop their careers. I totally realized that I would not be where I am if it wasn't for the help and mentorship of a lot of people who are smarter and more experienced than I was throughout my life. So I am very grateful for the opportunity to do the same for others that I work with. Um, but yeah, so on a day-to-day basis, where I am now, Certain Affinity, for those who aren't familiar with our studio, we do a mix of original games, so like original IPs and games that we develop in-house, but we do a lot of co-development work. And I would say, and by that I mean these are games where we're brought on to help out with a game project, taking on a specific subset of the game, having responsibility for certain things, but we're not the primary developer. That's been actually really interesting, and I've actually found I've enjoyed that quite a lot, because through doing co-development work at a Certain Affinity, I've gotten to work on the Call of Duty code base, uh, the Doom reboot with id, recently Hogwarts Legacy. We Certain Affinity has still helped out Microsoft with Halo games. I can't seem to escape the Halo franchise as much as I try. But it's been really interesting to see how different studios that also have really smart people solve similar problems, and that's been a really cool opportunity. So yeah. Anyway, these days, my work involves a lot of partner relationship, partner management, working with my counterparts at other studios, and then working with other team leads here at Certain Affinity, um, both at the project levels where setting priorities, scheduling work, managing programmers, um, and yeah, just we got fingers all over the place working on different
That
things.
that's perfect. I love it. That's exactly what I was hoping to look for. Kieran, I want to hear. So now we've gotten sort of what a engineering lead and director of engineering does. And so Kieran, what's the day in the life of a producer look like?
Well, it can look like a lot of different things. I think sometimes of production is like filling the cracks, and then a lot of the time it is planning and organizing. So every day you probably will start the day thinking, what is the most urgent problem to solve, and or what is the most important project or most important problem to solve long term, right? And everything that is sort of in a decision process throughout the day is kind of based on that. Video games are huge and they have lots and like huge amounts of interchanging parts. Everybody's updating the code and the art all the time. There's lots of things coming in, lots of things changing, bugs just flying everywhere. So it takes, certain types of like conversations and certain types of groups of people to come together and address these problems as they arise. So sometimes my day looks like just poking individual engineers or designers and saying, "Hey, what's your plan for this piece of work? What's the timeline on this? What is the expectation that we can tell the other teams? Because everybody is making a piece of the game, but also everybody relies on each other, right? An engineer is making a piece of the game that likely a level designer or an artist is waiting on so that they can build something else, right? And then they're going to have edits. So everyone has to be in communication all the time. And sometimes we don't exactly like to do that, or we might just be focused on work and not realize that there's other stuff going on. So producers are creating those communication spaces and starting those conversations. And a lot of the time, just putting the right two people in the room and saying, "Hey, who is going to solve this problem? Who's the best person to take this on? And what's the next step for this?" Oftentimes, just saying the questions that many people will be thinking, but just not wanting to say. And then, long term, we plan for the project. Many times video games go quite over. So producers try to not do that. So we partner with technical directors, just like Stefan, and people who are more senior and say, "Hey, here's the trajectory. Here's what we're doing. How do we make sure that these 27 engineers are on track and that we're going to deliver each of these pieces in time to ship this game, in however many years, right?" You're thinking about long timelines for a lot of projects nowadays. So yeah.
I love it. Great. Thank you for great insight. So I want to get to Michael then too. Michael, you have a very different role than these two. Give us sort of a day in the life of event management and what you're working on. It's because it may be interesting that you have a different role, but I have a feeling you're going to tell us some of the same things.
I was gonna say it sounds like I kind of do some of the same things that Stefan and Kieran also do as a event project manager. But similarly, like Boom TV is a very small team. We're still kind of considered a startup. And like at our core, we're kind of an entertainment company who puts on esports events. We stream it on Twitch and YouTube. So a lot of our business revolves around partners and sponsorships from different game studios or other, ad agencies who want to, get impressions on their product or in that way. So for me, like I'm coordinating with our marketing team, I'm coordinating with our production broadcasting team, I'm also coordinating with our graphics team, and then I'm the guy at the middle who's also coordinating with the partners to make sure that all of our deliverables that we sign get met. And then I'm also the one executing the event, running the event day of and lead up, and also, collecting any data or statistics that come from the event afterwards. So that's kind of the encapsulation of what I do on a day to day.
Awesome. Thank you. How much are you all how much are you all relying on sort of formal education versus self-taught skills versus stuff you've learned on the job? I'm kind of curious from each of you because each of you have different original backgrounds and are now doing something not quite completely different, but a little bit different. How much of that did you learn in school, and how often do you rely on what you learned in school?
So I can kick this off. For me, again, I got a degree in marketing. It was definitely a great foundation for me to kind of get my foot in the door and have at least, something on paper to as a foundation for employers to kind of look at me and say, okay, this guy kind of knows his stuff, and at least has a good background of what, we might need him to do. For the actual career part, I'd say a lot of that is kind of self-taught. A lot of it is sort of self-interest and, what do you want to learn? Where do you want to go? Um, is kind of where my career's taken its turn. So a lot of the stuff that I do now is kind of what I love to do and has kind of taken as a hobby, turned into a career as well. So.
I love it. Kieran, you want to go next?
Yeah. So I would actually say that my career is probably more related to the jobs that I had both sort of like before, during, and after college, right? I was actually working with kids a lot, like after school programs or like taking a church youth group to the new like to go places and stuff like that. So a lot of what I did back then was just like coordinating a horde of people doing something, and that kind of like planning and realizing like, oh, okay, when we take this route, we're going to have to make sure to do this, right? Like all of these kind of pieces are a little bit more similar to my profession now. Whereas I think in graphic design, I learned so much cool stuff and how to make things and a lot about the design process, which I think I observe and is part of my day to day. But I think the actual skills that I sort of build do at work is more from other things where I've had to manage tasks or plan some sort of complicated project or thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I'll finish up on this question. So, I guess for me, like, you know, obviously, when it comes to the programming aspect of my job, it's basically self-taught up to a point, and then enough to get my foot in the door, and then I've been learning continuously for the last 25 plus years now. Um, but I would say like I'm very thankful for the my education is in the mechanical engineering field, even because I learned a lot of important skills with respect to solving technical problems. It gave me a solid foundation with mathematics, and also I think just instilled in me kind of like a hunger, a desire to want to keep learning and to keep developing as an engineer, as a problem solver. And that's probably one of the most important things that I think I've carried with me since then, as far as my education, like the actual degree itself wasn't so important. And I've worked with a lot of other really, really smart people, much smarter than me, who didn't finish college. Maybe they never went. But they they're lifelong learners, and they just have they're very hungry to continue learning, continue developing themselves. And I think having that will serve someone really well in their future, no, regardless of what you end up doing professionally. I think it's amazing now that there are a variety of focused programs that actually kind of are focused on game development as a career, and across the various disciplines, like whether it's programming or art, animation, production. Uh, that's really cool. Like that was not a thing when I was going to school. So it's and I've met, worked with, and hired some really outstanding people from those programs. So anyway, yeah, I guess the key takeaway that I think I would try to pass on to someone who is in school is keep that hunger for learning. Like once you graduate from school, the learning doesn't stop. You've only just begun, and try to keep that going as much as possible throughout your life.
What are some tips you might have for finding additional learning? Sometimes I feel like when trying to know, well, where do we get some information? It can be kind of hard and difficult. What are some tips you might have for students that maybe, because UT doesn't have a game design, we're working on the idea of it, but a lot of students in here will be going from, say, graphic design or mechanical. Like a few of my students are mechanical engineering students, and they want to get into this, but they don't know they don't know where to jumpstart, where to go, or where to look for resources. Any tips for finding resources?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. I I would say that game jams, if those are a thing in the area, I suspect they are. I'm going to give a personal shout out to a good friend of mine and a UT at Knoxville alumnus, Casey Denellen. He runs his own game studio there in Knoxville. It's Casey Denellen Games. He's got a couple of games, Kill It With Fire 2, they're out now. He just started Smoky Mountain Game Developers Association. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. Casey is an amazing person. But yeah, I would say, game jams, meetups, like game development related meetups. If I feel like that must be a thing in Knoxville. Attending industry sponsored events. I mean, Epic is really good about that sort of thing with, around Unreal Engine based games. I was recently just at a Unity sponsored game development meetup here in Austin. So industry related meetups, anywhere where you're able to, get together and network with like-minded people. But yeah, I would say game jams would, like, if you don't have a network yet of other people who maybe want to collaborate on a project together, like I think that's a really valuable experience. That can be a great way to, find a group of people. Uh, you force yourself to work towards a goal and over a, small fixed period of time, and you produce something. And the outcomes of these game jams can also be a great promotional piece for yourself when you're trying to get a job and want to have something that shows what you can do and shows how you can work with a team of other developers. So
I love it. There's not a game jam at UT yet, though. Now that I have a contact, I'm gonna reach out and let's get one going. But I do know that for the students in the room, hackathon. There is a hackathon every year, and in those you can do any number of projects within that group. And so there's a student organization that coordinates that, and we'll share some of that information out as we can.
cool.
Anyone else have advice and tips?
Yeah, I would say just, kind of agree on the game jams. Just find any opportunity to work on something with someone who doesn't think exactly like you, right? Like find, if you're more of the creative role, find someone who's more technical. If you're more technical, then find someone more creative. And then, also realize that both of you are both. Enhance each other's skills and build something. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be a game, because a lot of the things that we have in games are just sort of tinkering around with ideas of motion and like what could be fun, right? So you can make any sort of creative interactive project, and maybe it won't be what you think it will be, but being able to talk to those problems that you were trying to solve is like a great way to just have some content in an interview. You can say, oh yeah, we had this arm, we got the art together, we put it on top of it, and it totally broke, and like that's basically the issue with rigging and designing a character in a game, right? So just try stuff, keep making stuff, and make games together.
I love it. I love it all. Where do you guys, in thinking about that, then the next sort of question I want to go down is where do you think the games industry is headed? Sort of what do you predict as future? Where should students maybe directing their efforts and trials and tribulations as they go through school, and they should be directing their learning? You may got a prediction of the future of
Uh,
games?
well, I won't attempt to predict the future, but I will say that I'm very excited by the emergence of the consumer availability of a lot of really cool technology these days. I mean, you know, AR, VR, and now you've got AI and all the amazing opportunities for tools that lends itself to. Uh, so I think with these new technologies, we're on the verge of being able to have some really different and unique experiences and experience entertainment in ways that we haven't before, which is really exciting to me. A couple of years ago, I got to work for a couple of years with this outfit here in Austin called Wave VR, and this is when the Travis Scott shows in Fortnite were happening. These basically immersive live music performances, and we were doing a similar thing on a VR platform. And like those projects are probably some of the most interesting things that I've worked on in my life. Not, more interesting to me than even the Halo games. Sorry, but like being in these so these were real-time concerts where we had performers who they would suit up in a mocap suit and we're capturing their emotions. They're performing live, sometimes with actual instruments, also hooked up with tracking devices, and then this is in a multiplayer setting, and people are in VR, but also attending on streaming platforms and 2D web. But being able to participate in this new way with performers, we had some performers who really took advantage of this new medium, and they would have these interludes where they would actually stop mid-show and be communicating in real time, having conversations with fans who are located all around the world. And I was like, man, this is so cool. And and even then I felt like these shows were just kind of like only starting to scratch the surface of what's possible. So I think as this technology becomes more widely available, we're going to see some really interesting entertainment experiences become available to people. So that part is really exciting to me. As far as like what I would suggest to students to prepare for this sort of thing, um, honestly, I would say just focus on honing your fundamentals. I could, I'll speak more to the programming side of things, but just having solid fundamentals of basic computer science, data structures, good coding practices. I would say also try to maybe learn a little bit about the tools and processes that related disciplines use. So like if I'm a programmer, maybe crack open Blender, learn how to do some basic modeling. And, I'm not saying become a really proficient or highly skilled animator or rigger, but maybe tinker with it and at least understand kind of the processes and the tools that they use, because it'll help you be a better team player, and um, being a good effective team player will be really important in a game development career.
Thanks. I want to interlude or go off of your future entertainment idea and ask Michael, where do you think the future, sort of, since you do a lot of live events too, especially, where do you think the future of esports events and all that is headed? What direction are we headed in?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back and say like 2020 was probably peak gaming with COVID and all that. And I think I don't know like how long it'll take until we get back to those sorts of levels. But going forward, I think what we're going to see is more sort of gamification of like everyday life, um, and how users can interact with, their phone, um, and what companies can do to sort of get in the face of everyday users. So I think for us, it's what we're doing at Boom TV. We're trying to come up with ideas that are really, unique experiences, stuff that, people will sort of remember, and what like think of like a Super Bowl commercial. Like, what are the commercials you remember about the Super Bowl? Stuff like that. What in the gaming space, from a marketing perspective on my end, are some of the things that will be remembered and sort of we can offer to gamers, and everyday people, to kind of interact with is kind of where I see the future of gamification.
Love it. Kieran, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with the first two answers here. I think that there's so much opportunity for us to break conventions, especially with even our basic technology parts that are changing, like with cloud computing and with now we're using solid state drives instead of hard disks. The way that we used to be sort of blocked on games and sort of interactive experiences is getting way more opened, right? Our technology is just able to do more, and it's a lot easier to kind of focus on some new advanced tech like like VR or any of these little there's so many cheap little like I don't even know what to call them, like they're little nuggets of something that you can order for like $100 or so, and it's like, ah, yes, this tracks my fingers when I'm doing something, and I can do gestures, or it's like, oh yeah, this is just an eye tracking device. There's so many little techs that you could just you know hook up an Arduino to some other little piece of something and create something that's real and physical in the world with just like a little bit of wires and just like Googling. And then suddenly you've kind of created a new device or a new, like, I don't even know, like you might call it an art exhibit or like an interactive experience. Like there's so many things that we call video games, but sometimes it's a story or a written thing, and sometimes it's really a simulated world. Like the breadth of it is going to just be ever increasing. And so I think you should learn all of it. Like learn anything that is interesting to you. There's so much out there. Like if there's something that's exciting to you, become an expert in that. Like and then work on all of the other little pieces that don't drive you crazy, and maybe just try to not be driven crazy by certain aspects of it, because learning takes patience and time. But the more that you build on these knowledge and these skills, like the better candidate you'll be, the more fun you'll have in life, and like just generally the more like fulfilled you'll be creatively. Yeah.
I love all of that. I'm going to interrupt on the questions. I'll keep going from here. But if any guests that are watching, any students that are watching, have a question that you'd like me to ask, just type it in the chat. I will read it out when you after you've typed it out and ask the panelists ourselves. I want to tap into Kiernan's thing right there. I would agree. I'm always fascinated by the stuff that used to require thousands of dollars of equipment or entire like Stefan talked about motion capture, but like in my head, old motion capture was like, oh, you need a studio and you need to be Disney to do that, and you could just do it in your basement now if you wanted to with a few things. It fascinates me what is out there and what people are creating, and how much also too is just created and one person looks at it or two people look at it. What is it like? But that being said, there's also sort of a dark side to the industry right now. There's been lots of layoffs the last few years. I guess my question is, what should students sort of be embracing? I know that Stefan's been sort of Halo bound for a long time, but has also sort of moved over, and Kiernan's been in a couple different places. But what should students prep for? Should it be 20 years at the same studio? Should they expect a new company every year? What should we be getting ourselves into?
Yeah, I can start with this one. Contracting is probably what to expect. I think that's kind of the entry level, that's what it is right now. I think the best thing for you to do is to accept that the industry is going to be how it is. I think this happens in video games for sure, but it's not exclusive to video games. Lots of tech companies have patterns like this. And yeah, you might just need to take some time at a company and accept that this is not my permanent position. But I think actually there's a lot of, like enjoyability in being able to say, okay, I'm here to work on this project. I'm going to give it my all. And if you try to not be emotionally attached to it and understand, like a lot of the time it's bigger than you, right? A lot of the time it's a giant corporation that made decisions. And then there's just not a possibility. And I don't exactly like that, but there's not a ton that I can do explicitly for my career. So yeah, I think that it's likely to move companies a little bit early on. And I think that part of that is, trying to understand how to make yourself valuable, and eventually finding an opportunity to show like where your position is. There's lots of individual little tiny roles that I don't have a name for, right? There's in between tech and art and all these different positions that we don't think of when we're applying for games, but eventually you'll find the exact spot for you, and be able to get a full-time permanent position and really improve something and work on something long term.
I'll piggyback off of that and saying just like cast a wide net of yourself. Don't, just limit yourself to the gaming world, branch off, and then, get skills and experiences from different companies that you're able to work with. And then when, the opportunity presents itself, bring those skills with you to your next adventure, wherever you go. I do think, the game world and tech world is it's kind of fluctuating right now with a lot of the layoffs. So I think it'll eventually recover. Um, but I would just say, yeah, don't limit yourself on, working a certain job, like working your dream job off the bat. Like, get experience, work on different things, and then again, just bring it back whenever you do land that dream job and you have all those skills with you. I'd also say on that note, like work on things you like to with in your free time, just to keep enhancing those skills too. So
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I agree with what you guys both said. And yeah, it's been a rough time. Like the studio I'm at right now, Certain Affinity, we suffered a round of layoffs earlier this year, which is really unfortunate. But yeah, it's just to echo what they said. I mean, the current climate, in a way, yeah. I mean, I've seen this kind of cycle before, and in fact, myself, when I went into mechanical engineering because I had a dream of working at one of the big three automakers. I was a motorhead. I wanted to help design and build cars. But by the time I was getting ready to graduate, the American automotive industry had, gone down the tubes and there were no jobs. So that's kind of how I ended up working in, the cell phone industry, which has nothing to do with automobiles, but they needed mechanical engineers. But yeah, again, kind of like I was saying, and what these guys are saying, if you're open to broad opportunities, they'll be out there. There are a lot of fields that are tangential to game development, like animation, film, um, all sorts of digital entertainment on the development side. I mean, computers are everywhere. Everything's connected to the internet. There's no shortage of opportunities for programmers out there. So yeah, I mean, just continue to improve your skills, be open to new opportunities. Um, they're out there. Don't give up. Just be awesome.
Mhm. Be awesome. I'm gonna get that on a sign on my wall back here. It just says "Be awesome." Um, a question from the audience about and you were already sort of tapping into this with compute. Anything can be done with a computer. So this was specifically for Michael, and I'll have him start with it. But it's for all three of you. Um, how about getting involved in international groups and with international games? And a lot of companies, Ubisoft is mostly in France and in Europe, and East Asia is massive for esports and whatnot. So, how much connection and how should students that want to sort of travel internationally and get involved in the international market, what should they be doing to prepare?
well, unfortunately, I never had the experience to travel abroad. So if you do have that opportunity, I would definitely do that first. I
Didn't you
think
just do an event in London? Sorry to.
Well, okay, so yes, I did do an event in London. I guess I can go off that. But if you do have the event chance to travel abroad, definitely do that. I kind of regret not doing it. But my sister did. She went to Rome. I had an amazing time, so do that. But yeah, for us, we have a lot of partners. So that was kind of a one-off event that we did that Jason is referencing. We worked with Epic Games, who now owns Rocket League, which is, basically car soccer. And we had the unique opportunity to travel to London. We worked with an agency who kind of got us into doing it was basically the world's first 3D Rocket League event. Um, and I got to travel to London for that. And it was on the Piccadilly Lights, which was the big screen off, like basically the equivalent to Times Square in London. And that was really neat. A lot of that has to do with our biz dev team. They're the ones going out pitching these ideas, and they're the ones kind of managing these relationships with these different partners. We were fortunate enough to be the one company that they reached out to. They said, "Hey, we need someone to kind of help manage this, do the broadcast and also uh, coordinate and project manage the players, just making sure all of the logistics are in place for that. So that was a very unique opportunity for us. A lot of the stuff that we do is mostly, you know, national based in the US. Um, but as far as like the question goes, like how to kind of introduce yourself to those international environments, I don't have a direct way of really saying that. I would just say like network. the best you can. Meet people within your industry, ask questions, learn from other people, and eventually, like, you can build those bridges with other people and get you where you want to go.
Does anybody else want to chime in with their sort of international experience and get involved internationally?
Uh, I will just add 2 cents. Uh, I'm all for international. Like, if you have the opportunity to travel internationally, absolutely do it. Yeah, it might be scary, but it's so worth it. So yeah, if you have the chance, by all means, do it. As far as like working or collaborating with other countries, that's an interesting one. I'll use myself as an example. When Certain Affinity, when we opened our second studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. For me personally, that was a really interesting proposition, and I was like, hey, maybe I can go up there and work, huh? Yeah, and it's actually not that easy to get, to make that happen. That doesn't mean it's impossible, but there are definitely like pros and cons to doing that sort of thing. And so yeah, for that one, uh, yeah, I don't know. If you really have your heart set on it, I'm sure you can make it happen. There you mentioned Ubisoft. They have a big presence in Canada. Ubisoft Montreal, they're huge. Um, so yeah, I'm sure if you want to do it, you can make it happen. Yeah, but if you're looking to get into marketing, target companies that are big enough to have a marketing budget. That's not every game studio. Um, yeah, I guess that's about it. And then to your last question about how long does it take to get into management or coordinating, that's probably different for everybody. I know for myself, it was probably well, I'd been working in the industry for probably 8 or 9 years before I became uh, a people and project manager. But other people it takes less time. Some people never get there, don't want to get there, and that's fine too. Um, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
No, this is great. Kieran, you want to add in as well?
Yeah. So I'll answer a couple of the questions in the chat. So yeah, I
Thank you.
did. I will say I applied everywhere. I applied my first round of when I was finally ready to start going somewhere. I knew I had to move because there wasn't really a big game studio in Knoxville. So I applied to like 75 jobs, and like I made a spreadsheet with like tracking all of the ones just because there were so many. And then like I would recommend this process where you look at the actual job description and like you just try to remove all of the bullshit. Like you cut down the tiny words so it just says communication, communication, design skills, communication, collaboration, and you realize that most jobs are focused on communication and not the thing that you thought it was. Or maybe this job is actually entirely web design and it's not for me. And then you show in your resume and or your cover letter, which I try to rewrite all the time. I'm always iterating on these regularly and asking people about them. And then you cater these resumes to the job description and say, here is how I have those skills. Here is how I've proven these bits. Here's a thing that I did, but not too much because the resume is a conversation starter. It's a menu that the job hiring officer or whomever is going to basically say, oh, tell me about this, right? I want to hear more about that. And then a couple of years later, literally with just 2 years, under 2 years of experience, that number shifted from I applied to like 50 jobs and got 5 different interviews this time and 3 offers. So I actually had more opportunities the second time around, whereas the first time I just had literally one offer and I took it. That's where I was moving. And then actually that job was a coordinating and sort of management position suddenly at entry level. So with production assistants and production coordinators are the type of role or anything that might say coordinator in it. It might be a playtest coordinator. So that was actually really scary as hell for me, just suddenly coming in and sitting, being put in front of a room, and I'm supposed to manage a meeting and basically take notes and ask people questions about something where I'm also learning about that. And honestly, it just was a big dive right in and just try my best and, eventually like figure out how all of this works and how I can fit into it and help everybody. So just ask a lot of questions and, keep trying.
Do you all keep websites or portfolio or even like portfolios of kinds to share with once you get an interview and gone that far?
I did used to, especially when I was looking for design positions as well. That was a big focus. You want to definitely have a website. You definitely want to have some form of accessible portfolio. So I would recommend, like being able to showcase a few different examples of your work on your website so that someone reading your resume can just click through and say, oh, this is cool. Oh, yeah. If you can code something that'll actually work on a website, like a little quick toy or something where you just click and blow bubbles or anything like that, I think that that shows like a lot of just like, oh, here, I just wanted to put something fun up here. And I think that's a really great way just to like showcase your skills. So the website is a really great opportunity to show an interactive type of portfolio piece where like a PDF or a resume doesn't really capture that. But I stopped paying for it because I'm not looking for design jobs anymore. So I can't show it to anybody. Sorry.
That's fair, Michael.
I would say like I don't have a portfolio, but since if I do ever get into the world where I am looking for another job, I would probably do something that's more interactive like a website and put on there like sort of the marketing campaigns that I've been a part of, kind of with overall, metrics that went into that campaign and kind of my responsibilities. Pulling the snippets from like Twitter or Instagram, showing like the likes and what the content was on that. I could definitely see myself doing that if I was in a position where, I needed to, apply for jobs.
Stefan, when you're hiring people, what are you sort of looking for the most? What stands out to you if you're adding new people?
Well, I will say one thing that will really make you stand out is like these gentlemen were both saying that having something that you can see online, whether it's something interactive or a website, something whatever it might be. Those are the most interesting because like Kieran was saying these are conversation starters. Like if you have a demo of a game or even a tech demo, have to be a full game. But if it's something that's visually interesting or it has an interesting experience or there's something about this unique, um, that's going to stand out way more to me than line after line of like text that might be really you know it's not to downplay the experience, but picture's worth 1,000 words. They say an interactive picture is worth even more. Um, and yeah, like honestly, those stand out that will get you to the top of the list as far as like getting an interview or getting that process started. I know I firmly believe that that's the only reason that Bungie ever called me back is because I sent them a giant padded envelope with a bunch of discs of just stuff that I had made over the last several years to try to show them, hey, I don't just make cell phone antennas. I can also write code and do some crappy graphics.
I love it. We only have a few minutes left. Am I right, Buki? Just want to make sure. A few minutes left. I want to give you guys a chance to sort of give parting advice to your former college self. If you could go back in time and sort of give it, since a lot of people in the chat are in school right now. If you could give advice to your former self, what would you give? Let's start with Michael. You're the most recent. So Michael? Let's start with you.
Yeah, I would just say don't panic, everything works out. Just keep working at it, stay on your path that you're going on. Or, for me, I actually did start out as a computer science major. I've realized that that was not for me. So I, went over to the College of Business and started marketing and still found my way into the gaming industry. And, I basically, I really can't complain because I do have kind of the dream job that I've always wanted. So, um, I think just keep at it and keep working hard and everything works out.
Kieran, let's go to you next. Advice to your former college self.
ABC, always be creating. I think that's all. Oh, and quit freaking out all the time. I think just things are going to happen and just be chill, I think would be one, but that's maybe just more me personally.
My next sign is going to be creators get coffee. Um, and Stefan, what's your advice to your former college self?
My advice to my former self in general is just always be open to opportunities that present themselves. Don't just ever say no offhand. Like consider everything. You never know where those opportunities are going to lead you. I can't think of any opportunities that I've said yes to that turned out really bad. I think that's a good sign. And don't
Yeah.
listen to people that tell you you can't do something or that tell you that something's impossible. They're usually wrong.
I love it. I love it. Well, as far as I know, I think that's our time. Buki, I'll let you close us out and go from here.
Yes, thank you so, so, so much. Thank you, everyone, for just sharing all of this great knowledge, information. If I wasn't satisfied with what I currently do, I probably would have moved to gaming and just with all of these tips, maybe there's something for me there. But I hope students got a lot of questions answered and all of that. So I think the final thing is, what would you, for all of you here, how do you want students to reach out to you? So what do you prefer? Or can they reach out to you? And if they cannot at this time, I think that's fine, right? So can they reach out to you if they have more questions? What would be the best way to contact you? You can either put in the chat and I would add it to my follow-up email once I send the recording out to students that registered.
For me, I'm probably pretty easy. LinkedIn is really good, but I'm also in the UTK Esports Discord. You can also just DM me there. So I always read DMs on Discord. So LinkedIn or Discord, and I can put my LinkedIn in the chat as well.
LinkedIn for me as well. I like feel free to ask me any questions, random stuff. I'm kind of a mixed bag of knowledge about game stuff, so please bother me and I will send a response. I'll post it in a second too.
Me three on LinkedIn. I pasted it in the chat there.
So that lets you all know something. If you're already not on LinkedIn, you may just be doing something wrong. So you want to get on LinkedIn as quickly as possible. Again, that's a good way to connect with a lot of people and you have access to your LinkedIn. Thank you all so much for sharing that. Also, I just wanted to say that the Career Center is a resource to you. That's exactly why we're doing this, having this kind of conversations. The Career Center is a good resource because we help you with your resume, with your cover letter. And I did not pay Kernan to say this, but he said it, that your resume and your cover letter has to be tailored. That's exactly what we say all the time. And so please schedule appointment with your career coach. That would be me, or depending on your industry, or depending on your major, all of that as well. But we're available to help review your resume, your cover letter, your portfolio as well. And Jason is a good resource that is on campus. Jason is a wealth of knowledge with everything. I mean, yeah, everything gave me. So ask him and then he will let you know if he gets it or not. Amazing. Thank you so much, Kernan, for doing that. If you want someone else to review your resume, Kernan is available to do that as well. And there's the esports club. So if you're not part of that and want to be part of the esports, that's something else I would encourage you to look at. I will do best to send a follow-up email to everyone that registered and showed up on the Zoom so that you have all of this LinkedIn in one space, all of the Career Center resources as well. It will take me a little time, but I will get it out. I promise. But yes, please maximize all of these resources. We would love all of that. But thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Jason, for leading the conversation. You said some things that I knew that I couldn't have said from my experience. And thank you all so much for sharing and just helping our students. I will end the recording here and we'll be officially done.